Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gretchen and today I am here with another Booker Prize review, and today we're going to be talking about Misinterpretation by Ledia Xhoga. Now this is the third review from this year's Booker Prize Longlist, and this was one that I was really excited to read. When I was researching and planning my predictions, I stumbled upon this book, and once I read the description, I immediately added it to my TBR. It sounded so fascinating. Now, I don't normally do this, but I want to read the description because it's important to help explain my review, and I want you to understand what sold me on wanting to read this book. So it says, in present-day New York City, an Albanian interpreter reluctantly agrees to work with Alfred, a Kosovar torture survivor, during his therapy sessions. Despite her husband's cautions, she soon becomes entangled in her client's struggles. Alfred's nightmares stir up her own buried memories, and an impulsive attempt to help a Kurdish poet leads to a risky encounter and a reckless plan. As ill-fated decisions stack up, jeopardizing the nameless narrator's marriage and mental health, she takes a spontaneous trip to reunite with her mother in Albania, where her life in the United States is put into stark relief. When she returns to face the consequences of her actions, she must question what is real and what is not. So I read that and I was like, yep, I am in. That sounds so interesting. And the part that really caught me was her interactions with Alfred and her being that interpreter for him as he is talking through all of these tragic memories and talking about the things that haunt him and that impact his mental health. And then the idea of him talking about those things and it unearthing things in her own memory. So I really thought that that was going to be the primary focus of this book. And I read that description because this is a perfect example of how sometimes as a reader, and I'm speaking for me personally, I set unrealistic expectations for a book based on my interpretation of that description, and I end up getting let down in the end. When I read that description, like I said, in my mind, I imagined that we were going to spend a lot of time focusing on Alfred in these therapy sessions and his traumas and her responses to them, and kind of what I pictured was them like living their lives in some type of parallel. And I thought that their dynamic and working relationship would be a big part of the book, and although it was there, it felt really underdeveloped for me. And then we have the subplot involving the Kurdish poet, and once again, I was left wanting more. I wanted to know more about the poet's background and the poet's situation, and the author kept giving me little bits and pieces of information that I found really fascinating and were ones that I wanted to explore, but they never involved the narrator, who was the main character. There were a couple of things that did happen throughout the book that held my interest, but it just wasn't enough to meet my expectations. I was more interested in the minor characters than I was the main character with this book. I didn't dislike this book, but I do feel like if the author had taken more time to elaborate on some of the other minor characters, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And I also think that she would have been able to further drive home the themes that she was presenting in this book. She focused a lot on heritage and identity and the immigrant experience, which I appreciated. She also touched on family and marriage, which, by the way, the main character's relationship with her husband also felt very forced and undercooked to me. There were plot points between the two of them that felt very far-fetched and unrealistic, and it almost felt like they were only there to get the characters into specific geographic locations. And there were a couple times when I was honestly ready to roll my eyes at some of the coincidences that were happening throughout this book. I also kind of felt bad for the main character, our narrator, because it didn't feel like her marriage was real or based on true love. It almost felt like her husband was only with her because he had a fetish for Albanian women, and he didn't treat her great either. Now, I'm not saying that she treated him very kindly either. They were both kind of terrible people and were constantly doing awful things, but I don't know. I just wasn't feeling the love. I didn't believe that those two people would be married or together. I will say though, on a positive note, I thought the writing was actually really good, and I have to give the author credit for providing us something different with her plot. It was unique, and because this was a debut novel, I'm really excited to see what else this author is going to give us in the future. And regardless of what that plot is or description is, I'm gonna take a chance on it because I did enjoy her writing style and her technique. And once again, just know that I will be the first to admit that I was likely focusing on the wrong things with this novel because, like I said, I went into it with different expectations. I was expecting something different, and the book didn't deliver on that. So in another world, if I had interpreted, it's funny that this book is called Misinterpretation because I totally misinterpreted the description of this book, but I'm curious if I went into it, you know, interpreting that description as something different and focusing on different things, if I would have had a better time with the book. I don't know. I'm curious to know what you all think about that book. Like I said, I liked this novel, but I didn't love it, and I would really love to learn about what I might have missed that would have made this a more enjoyable experience for me if you're one of the readers out there that enjoyed it. So please leave your comments below, and if you enjoy Booker Prize reviews, please like, comment, and subscribe. And my Booker reading is still going strong, and you should see more video reviews coming out soon. And until we read again, bye!